Welcome to night number 113 of History Bedtime Stories in bed in our pajamas. And tonight's episode is brought to you by Buddy's Pizza. Tonight we're talking about the Detroit Women's Exchange, which is also sometimes known as the Exchange for Women's Work. This was an organization set up by societies across the United States and Canada, and it was really there to help widowed women, single mothers, and women whose circumstances really needed some sort of social safety net, which at the time didn't exist. The women's exchange movement really started in the 1830s, and it was affluent women who came up with this idea that by employing women to make handicrafts, things like hand-painted bone china tea sets, knitted scarves and mittens, darned socks, hand-woven rugs, and baked goods and food, they could then charge a 10 to 15% commission on top of the sale price of those goods and be the broker to sell all of those items, making a living for these women who traditionally, especially in the 1800s through the early 1900s and turn of the century, didn't have a way to get a job outside of the home. So it was taking these traditional handicrafts, charging a commission on their sale, and selling them in order to fund both the organization and the salaries and payment of the women working on commission for the Women's Exchange. Makes total sense, doesn't it? The Detroit Women's Exchange was established in 1889, and it was originally on East Jefferson Avenue in the home of a woman named Mrs. T.A. McGraw. Now, Mrs. McGraw opened up her living room and would have sort of scheduled home shows for these quality-made handicrafts. So the women who were members of the exchange would make products all week, and then on a set day at a set time, Mrs. McGraw would sort of host an informal tea party. You can almost think of it like a Tupperware party. People would come in, they would make purchases, the Women's Exchange would take their 10% commission, which handled the advertising and the payment of their staff, and then the women who created the goods would make 85 to 90% of the sale price of their product. The success of the original Women's Exchange meant that they were able to get their first official location. It was actually in the back of a flower shop on Grand River Avenue. From there, they move in 1891 to a YMCA building on Grand River here in the city, and then eventually they start establishing lunchrooms. The YMCA was their first lunchroom, and this was genius because it let the women who chose to cook or bake and cook, and then serve in cafeteria-style settings and make money every day of the week serving these lunches, whether it was lunches or dinners. As the lunchrooms become more and more popular, they move again to a Sprawling and Company dry goods store on Woodward Avenue, kind of right by the intersection of Michigan Avenue. And it is there that the Women's Exchange Club of Detroit starts serving an average of 300 lunches a day, meaning the women who worked in their catering department were suddenly earning not a living wage, but a thriving wage, on average $3 a day. That would be today making about $100 a day. This was a lot of money for a woman at the time. In 1892, the Women's Exchange of Detroit merges, and they merge with a group called the Decorative Arts Society of Detroit. The Decorative Arts Society was doing things like china painting, rug weaving, handicrafts, the Women's Exchange, all the same stuff. And by merging their powers, they start producing not only some gorgeous, truly collectible, absolute treasures, but they start really consolidating their work effort. They're able to purchase kilns for the china painting and to buy weaving equipment in mass, getting it at a lower price, which they're able to pass on to their commissioned members so that when they sell the product still at the same price, their profit margin is larger. The success of the Detroit Women's Exchange, now merged with the Decorative Arts Society of Detroit, allows them to own their own building. On February 1st, 1916, they hire the architectural firm of Smith, Hinchman, and Grills, and they put together two buildings on Adams Street just off Grand Circus Park. You may know these buildings today as the building that houses Chelly's Chili right by Comerica Park. That's the Women's Exchange building. It's designed after a 1621 English Butchers Guild building from Hertfordshire, England. And they really wanted that idea of a guild, of a union, of a group of people working together to promote all. The typical activities for the exchange really were a wide variety. Everything from those handicrafts to large catering events. And when the Prince of Wales, future King of England, visited Detroit to see Henry and Clara Ford, it was the Women's Exchange who catered a luncheon for 700 guests. They produced 2,000 cakes for the candidate for Detroit mayor, James Cousin, at the bequest of his wife. Mrs. Cousins thought if they had these 2,000 cakes, they could use them at social events and gatherings promoting her husband's political career. And so 2,000 cakes were produced in just 3 months. They were a powerhouse. But as opportunities change in America, as social safety nets like Social Security become available, life insurance becomes more common, leaving widowed wives some sort of income after the passing of their husband who had traditionally been the breadwinner. And as business really went down following the end of the arts and crafts movement, the Detroit Women's Exchange ended operations in 1942. There are still about 15 women's exchanges across the United States and Canada. However, many now welcome men as members, still maintaining the Women's Exchange name, but saying, if you need a place to sell your goods, a group to rally behind you, help you buy raw materials at a lower cost, help you sell to a broader market, the Women's Exchange has got your back. I hope you're enjoying History Bedtime Stories. If you are, give us a like and a share down below, and we'll see you tomorrow night. Wash your hands.